Thank you, Mayor Dryley. We're live.
Thanks, Chris. Good evening and welcome councillors, executive leadership team, community members and council staff to tonight's ordinary council meeting. My name is Councillor Tim Dryley and I'm the Mayor of Hepburn Shire Council. Hepburn Shire Council acknowledges the Dja Dja Wurrung as the traditional owners of the lands and waters we live and work on. On these lands, Jarrah has performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We recognise their resilience through dispossession and it is a testament to their continuing culture and tradition, which is strong and thriving. We also acknowledge the neighbouring traditional owners, the Wurundjeri to our southeast and the Wadawurrung to our southwest, to pay our respect to all Aboriginal peoples, their culture and law. We acknowledge their living culture and the unique role they play in the life of this region. As we are undertaking this meeting virtually tonight, I will read on behalf of my councillor colleagues the councillor's statement of commitment to prevent any audio feedback occurring. We, the councillors of Hepburn Shire, declare that we will undertake on every occasion to carry out our duties in the best interests of the community and that our conduct shall maintain the standards of the good code of governance so that we may faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in this council by the people of Hepburn Shire. Due to restrictions tonight's council meeting will be conducted virtually. In the spirit of open, transparent and accountable governance, the meeting is being live streamed on Council's Facebook page and you'll be able to view the proceedings of the meeting, council deliberations and voting. The meeting is also being recorded and will be available on Council's website as soon as practicable after the meeting. Should technology problems be encountered and we are unable to broadcast this meeting, the meeting will be adjourned until resolution or postponed until the live stream can be re-established. In accordance with Chapter 6, Section 3 of our governance rules, a person, including any representative of the media, must not operate photographic, audio or video recording equipment or any other recording device at any council meeting without first obtaining the consent of the chairperson. I also remind everyone that local government decision-making, unlike state and federal government, does not afford the benefit of parliamentary privilege and hence no protection is afforded to councillors and council officers for comments made during meetings which are subsequently challenged in a court of law and determined to be slanderous. As per ministerial guidelines for virtual meetings, councillors are required to advise individually whether they can see and hear the proceedings and their councillor colleagues. I will confirm to each councillor whether they can be heard. Councillor Bray, I'll start with you. Councillor Bray, can you please confirm you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues?
Thank you, Councillor Dryley. I can confirm that I can hear proceedings and see and hear my councillor colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. I can confirm that I can see and hear you. Councillor Hewitt, can you please confirm you can hear proceedings and see and hear all your colleagues?
Yes, Councillor Dryley, I can hear proceedings and see and hear all of my councillor colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. I can confirm that I can see and hear you. Councillor Simpson, can you please confirm you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues? You're on mute, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Dryley. I can see all my colleagues and I can hear proceedings.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. I can confirm that I can see and hear you. Councillor Henderson, can you please confirm you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I can see and hear all of my colleagues and all of the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. I can confirm that I can see and hear you. Councillor Halliday, can you please confirm you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues?
Thank you, Mayor. I can confirm that I can hear proceedings and see and hear all of my councillor colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Halliday. I can confirm that I can see and hear you. Councillor Hood, can you please confirm you can hear proceedings and see and hear all your colleagues? I can barely hear you, Councillor Hood. You might try again.
Oh, is that better? I can confirm I can hear and see all the proceedings and my colleagues.
Yes, if I could hear you that time, yes, you might need to speak a bit closer to the screen for some reason.
Sure.
I confirm that I can see and hear all of my colleagues. Mr. Thomas, do we have any apologies for tonight's meeting?
No apologies, Mayor.
I'd like to now introduce council officers who are present in this council meeting. Mr. Bradley Thomas, Chief Executive Officer. Mr. Andrew Burgess, Director, Organisational Services. Ms. Lee McCallum, Director, Community and Development. Mr. Bruce Lucas, Director, Infrastructure and Delivery. Ms. Kristen Fort, Manager, People and Governance. And Mr. Chris White, Manager of ICT. Move on to declarations of conflict of interest. As required at any other meeting of council, councillors must declare a conflict of interest at the start of the meeting and leave the meeting when the item is presented to council. Councillors will be required to leave the meeting and return when the item has been resolved. Throughout the meeting, if a councillor realises that they have an interest, they can declare at that point and follow the same procedure. Councillors, does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare? I'll take that as a no. Officers that are present, I now ask whether you have a conflict of interest in any items presented before council tonight. In that case, move on to the confirmation of previous minutes. Councillors, I have a recommendation before us to adopt meeting minutes from council's previous council meetings. The recommendation is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 21st of December 2021, as previously circulated to councils, be confirmed. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Halliday. And seconder, Councillor Bray. Do I have anyone to speak for or against the motion? For the motion and against the motion? Councillor Hood.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll take this opportunity, not for the first time and not for the last time, to speak against the adoption of the minutes. Councillors, the document that we have before us purporting to be minutes of our 21st of December meeting run to 1,312 pages. Councillors, you may recall that at our December meeting, we discussed a wide range of important topics, including the Creswick Trails, the Trentham Community Centre, the issuing of community grants, and the rail trail extension, just to name but a few. The minutes, yet again, do not reflect the debate that occurred on that night. They do not give any insight whatsoever on the rationale for any of our decisions. The users, who may be auditors, the inspectorate, or members of the community, from these minutes gather absolutely no insight whatsoever into our decision-making processes and our debate. Councillors, we spend countless hours in briefings and reading through reports that officers prepare. These minutes do not do justice to the work that we put into our decision-making. They are not an example of good governance, and I cannot, in all good conscience, agree to adopting these minutes as they're completely deficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Councillors, I put this motion to vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. That's Councillor Dryley, Councillor Bray, Councillor Hewitt, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Simpson, 4. All those against? Councillor Hood. Thank you. The motion is carried. We move on to notices of motion. There are no notices of motion that have been submitted to tonight's meeting. Items of urgent business. Are there any items of urgent business tonight, councillors? No, in that case, We'll move to the next item. Presentation of councillor reports. I'd like to present my report. I will table this report. For many people in the Shire, New Year's resolutions that revolved around a more predictable and relaxed 2022 were dashed very early on with the devastating storm event in Creswick, the rapid rise of Omicron cases in the community, and AusNet's attempts to gain forced entry to some properties. I personally witnessed the stress and trauma of these events that they have created for local people and businesses alike. A lot of my time in the past couple of months have been about visiting and talking with people on the ground about their experiences and trying to connect them with appropriate avenues of support. I've heard stories of elderly residents being rescued from their flooding homes by our dedicated CFA volunteers, of the difficulties some Moore Street residents have had getting their units cleaned up and repaired to be able to move back in, and the horror stories of drains and gutters overflowing and blocked by golf ball size hail and other debris, roofs caving in, carpets being ruined, and precious furniture and memories being destroyed. There are also the sad stories of massive crop losses for local farmers and their families who may also be in the path of the AusNet towers. Many local businesses are also finding it extremely difficult to fill all shifts as so many staff members are isolating and recovering from coronavirus-related exposure. There's been a shocking strain on mental and physical reserves, but there are amazing stories of resilience emerging and some hope that a level of routine, normality and pleasure can creep back in again. For instance, the Creswick Lions Club and other community groups have been doing an amazing job helping local people with yard cleanups, setting up a dedicated donation line, and helping students repurchase flood-damaged school books and supplies and emergency food elsewhere. Local social media has been awash with offers of support from one local person to the next, from fresh cooked food, chainsawing of fallen branches, to free accommodation in spare bedrooms and bungalows. Our own storm recovery team and other staff have also been extremely dedicated and willing to go to great lengths to find vulnerable people short-term accommodation, provide them useful financial advice and the necessary psychological support they're seeking. Our works teams are steadily working through a large backlog of requests to repair road and other infrastructure too. And your patience and respect for our staff's need for a safe workplace is appreciated, as they too are suffering exhaustion and stress in some circumstances. Among the chaos of the past few weeks and months, it has been good to see some important aspects of our daily lives returning and our community being able to come out to celebrate together once again. I presented several awards and welcomed new citizens at the Community Awards and Civic Ceremony on a beautiful afternoon outdoors in Hepburn Springs Mineral Reserve. I climbed Mount Beckworth at sunrise on Australia/Survival Day with others and spoke at the community barbecue and flag raising event in Trentham. I've been talking to many people at the various pop-up sessions throughout the Shire for the sustainable Hepburn and positive ageing strategies. I've also officiated at the L2P program transition event and the $134,000 funding announcement for SHIFT, Sustainable Healthy Integrated Food Towns. I met with local affordable housing group and the Department of Transport, State Ministers Mary-Ann Thomas and Jala Pulford, and Federal Minister Catherine King. Over this busy time, I've also attended various media interviews, including one for ABC TV on the renaming of Jim Crow Creek. It is great to be able to be out in the world again with local people on the ground, but I acknowledge that there is still a lot of pain and fatigue in the community as we begin the long journey to recovery. Council will continue to offer support, advocate and seek community and stakeholder feedback as we look back and review and remediate the factors that contributed to the infrastructure, environmental failures or damages more broadly wherever possible. I'll move on to councillor reports. Councillor Juliet Simpson, would you have a report? Holcombe Ward.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Riley. I'll just be reading part of my report and the rest of it I'll table. There was a fire at Up and Down track near Glen Lyon. Sadly, the house and shed were destroyed. Brigades from Glen Lyon, Malmesbury, Dalesford, Trentham, Spring Hill, Franklin Ford, and Balan attended. I'd like to acknowledge the bravery of the firefighters who went beyond the call of duty to extinguish the fire where there were many gas bottles stored and lockers of live ammunition. There was also an exploding vehicle. Yes, so please see the rest of my report that I've tabled.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Councillor Bray, Birchwood.
Thank you, Mayor Drylee. I was privileged to attend and speak at the Terra Nullius breakfast in Dalesford on the 26th of January, which recognises that this day is a day of grieving and survival for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And we were fortunate to hear the Jara woman, Rebecca Phillips, speak from the heart about the painful stories of the past, but also to acknowledge how far we've come in reconciliation and the journey still ahead of us. Thanks also to Mitch for bringing the sounds of the didgeridoo to the gathering. The day before, Council held their Community Awards and Citizenship Ceremony on the 25th, which was a great opportunity to welcome new citizens and acknowledge those who were nominated and received awards for their dedication to commitment to working with this community. Congratulations to all the new citizens and the award recipients and nominees. I've attended a number of pop-ups in Creswick and Dalesford seeking community ideas and suggestions into the sustainable Hepburn strategy. We've had some great conversations with people about how council can better protect our fragile forest ecosystems and recycling ideas, protecting waterways and groundwater, green waste, and many more. It's really clear that being sustainable and protecting and nurturing our environment is a top priority for this community. I'm really looking forward to the next stage, the community reference groups giving input into the sustainable Hepburn strategy on waste, biodiversity, climate and water, and getting to zero emissions. And that begins this Thursday. I've had many other conversations with members of the community, including people who've contacted me to express concerns about the decision to sell the Rex, and many would like more clear understanding on how the decision was reached, and some have asked for further consultation with community. I've also had numerous conversations with older residents and their families about council's in principle decision to move out of the aged care services. And it's been valuable to hear their stories and to see how the changes, how they would see the changes impacting them. Also heard from a number of people on planning matters, some to put their opposition to certain developments and others to express some frustration with the current delays in the planning system at council at the moment. I believe that our planning team are working very hard at the moment, but have been hit by a high number of applications recently, which has been compounded by staff shortages. So we're just asking the community for their patience as we work through the backlog at the moment. Thanks. I will table the rest of my report.
Thanks, Councillor Bray. Councillor Hewitt, Birchwood.
Thank you, Mayor Drylee. It certainly seems a long time since the last council meeting in December. And like yourself, I acknowledge the difficulties, the stress and the loss that occurred in Creswick. I'd also like to acknowledge the work of the staff, council staff in this area, coming as it has after the work that they've been required to do from the June storm, coping with COVID, and now the stress and working with coping with the storm. As I said, it seems a long time ago. I was privileged to attend and work at the Glenlyon Sports Day on the 1st of January, and just want to call out how that sports day works, how all of the people involved on the committee get together to produce an event that actually contributes very well to the community, and it's all done on a volunteer basis. I'd also like to congratulate Danny Moynihan for becoming the Hepburn Shire Citizen of the Year, and Katie Top, who was this Hepburn Shire Young Citizen of the Year. And just make the point, because there's often a lot of discussion that I hear as a councillor about so-called blow-ins or new residents and them not contributing to the community. Make the point that Danny was a blow-in 23 years ago and Katie was a blow-in 2 years ago. And just make the point really that it doesn't matter when people arrived here, it's what they contribute and what they do for the community. And Danny and Katie are certainly prime examples of that, and I congratulate them. Part of my councillor duties have been to chair the Gender Equity Committee and also the Disability Advisory Committee, which have occurred this month. Particularly like to bring to your attention the differential impact of COVID on those of us in our community who have a disability. There's evidence that social isolation, financial insecurity and difficulties have impacted much more strongly on that particular vulnerable group of people. Like Councillor Bray, I've been involved in some sustainability pop-ups, some aged care service presentations, and again, talking to local residents about what those proposed changes might be. As you know, I'm currently the chair of the Daylesford Hospital Upgrade Committee, and I'd like to report that we're expecting that the master plan will go to the board in the next week or so, and like to call out and thank our local member, Marianne Thomas, and our federal member, Catherine King, for their support in this area. I will table the report.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. Councillor Halliday, Cameron Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a report this month. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Henderson, Creswick Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, so many of my colleagues have already put the main points of what I was going to say in, so I'll process it down and save some time. But times have been very tough for many residents in the Creswick Ward. I must inform Council that AusNet seem not to be listening to the people. This issue should not be seen as a local issue, just to the affected area where the towers and the terminal station are proposed. It's something that affects the whole area and indeed the region. A whole way of life and means of viable farm production is under threat. Even a rabbit, Mr. Mayor, knows that it's safer underground. I urge all of my colleagues and the people of our shire to stand behind our impacted rural folk. It's pleasing to see the development of Hammond Park in Creswick on the agenda tonight, and the patience and perseverance will hopefully be well rewarded. I've also been in discussions with state ministers and their advisors to seek some solutions to the impact of storms in the area upon residents, and in particular those most vulnerable. We cannot sit back and hope that these events will not happen again, but rather attempt to do whatever is possible to mitigate damage into the future. I noted a comment made about the way Creswick had cleaned up the mess. Creswick Lions, as Councillor Dryley has mentioned, led volunteers to assist some of the residents, and the whole town pulled together to help each other. Thanks to all involved, as they are too numerous to mention here. I do also urge people not to be fooled into thinking that just because the physical mess is less evident, that there's not still much mental trauma and despair. Do look out for those who will not come forward to get help. And just a reminder to all of my colleagues and to the general populace that International Women's Day is on again this year, refuses to go away, and it is a chance for us to get together and celebrate the achievements of the many women in our community and far beyond, actually, and for their contribution to our society. So March the 8th is International Women's Day. People will be required to book, because I would hope that it'll be booked out, and we'll be able to hear just some of the achievements that women have been able to make to this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Hood, Coliban Ward.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I tabled my report yesterday with council officers, but I will touch on a couple of key events that have occurred since we last met. This year's Australia Day function was run jointly by Council and the Trentham Lions Club, and the day was dedicated to paying tribute to the many organisations and individuals who worked tirelessly throughout and after the June 2021 storm event. I'm particularly pleased to report that the 50th annual Lionville Woodchop event was successfully held on Saturday, the 5th of February. After suffering cancellation through COVID, the event was remarkably well attended and competition was strong. It's pleasing to note that the hard-working Lionville Hall Committee staged such a wonderful event for the community, with proceeds going to maintenance of this important community asset. Only this week, an event was held in Trentham to celebrate the opening of the Trentham Childcare Facility, which has been running for almost a year now. It's a tribute to council officers, Fran Fogarty and Kate Proctor in particular, that this facility was opened after so many delays and is now unsurprisingly very well patronised. It is hoped that the range of hours offered for long day care can be increased when more staff are recruited. We're currently experiencing some problems in that area. On other matters, several meetings have recently taken place between community members, council management and myself, with the objective of identifying short and long-term solutions for the provision of a facility for the safe off-leash exercise of our canine friends. In this regard, I look forward to the completion of Council's domestic animal policy so that we can establish an off-leash dog park. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Hood. Councillors, I have a recommendation that Council receives and notes the Mayor's and Councillors' reports. I'm search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Simpson and Councillor Henderson. Councillors, I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. It's carried unanimously. So we'll move to the next item, which is the Chief Executive Officer's report. Thank you, Councillor Thomas, CEO Thomas, I should say.
Yeah, not quite. Yeah, thank you very much, Lee. And CEO's report for the month is included in the agenda of tonight's meeting, and I won't touch on too many of the items that have already been touched on by councillors. It's amazing how 54 days goes very quickly, and it's only 54 days since our last council meeting, and how much has actually happened in that stage. Really wanted to just make a very quick shout out to our fabulous staff that we've got in the organisation, that many were able to take a short break over the Christmas period, but really wanted to appreciate the work that they're doing throughout the last couple of years with the storms ×2, the COVID, the impact that's had on their personal lives as well, to continue to deliver the fantastic amount of reports, the projects that councillors have touched on, the events, the community pop-ups. It's a testament to the fantastic staff that we've got here at Hepburn Shire Council. And as I said, my CEO's report for the month is attached per the report, and there's a recommendation there on page 15 of council's agenda that council receives and notes the CEO's report for February 2022. Councillors.
Thanks, Mr. Thomas. I have a recommendation that council receives and notes the Chief Executive Officer's report for February 2022. I'm search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Hood. Councillor Hewitt. Councillors, I put this motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's carried unanimously. Moving on to public participation time. We have no petitions have been received ahead of tonight's meeting. So I'll move on to item 10.2, which is public questions. We have 22 public questions that have been received for tonight's meeting. Council ordinarily allocates 30 minutes for public participation time. Due to the large number of questions submitted, I recommend that an extension of time be resolved by council of an extra allocation of 15 minutes to provide the further time to hear and respond to questions. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion, and the recommendation is that council grants an extension of time for 15 minutes in addition to the allocated 30 minutes to allow for public participation time. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Bray and Councillor Henderson. Councillors, I put this motion to vote. All those in favour, raise your hand. That's carried. So I'll move on to question 1 for public participation time, and this is from Margaret Lockwood. And the question is in relation to the Glen Lyon Recreation Reserve. In addition to the cost of $38,258 for the above mentioned assessments, what was the cost to the Hepburn Shire Council of developing the above mentioned cleanup plan, including the cost of the independent auditor mentioned in the preamble to question 2 below? My response is Council engaged technical experts and conducted a community briefing early August 2021 to discuss renewal and conditions of Daylesford Field and Game future licence. Council implemented these recommendations and has communicated these to the community. Council submitted its full response to the EPA cleanup notice, namely the cleanup plan and the environmental management plan, on the 23rd of December 2021, and is currently waiting for the full response back from the EPA, which is expected in the next few weeks, at which time some further response can be provided to the community as per our commitment. The GST exclusive costs of the 2 consultants, including the independent environmental auditor of developing the cleanup plan, is $26,268 for the assessor and $50,417.50 for the auditor, which is a grand total of $76,685.50. Question 2 comes from Margaret Lockwood as well. Question it's again in relation to the Glen Lyon Recreation Reserve. Has the Hepburn Shire Council submitted to CUP to the Environment Protection Authority, rescheduled for October 2021? And if not, what is the rescheduled date? If a CUP has been submitted to the EPA, what is the cost to Council of the cleanup plan and the proposed timeline for remediation? My response: the first deliverable task of the cleanup notice, the cleanup plan, was submitted by the due date in October 2021. EPA have accepted this and revoked the initial cleanup notice. The EPA are still reviewing the second deliverable task, being the environmental management plan, and have yet to provide a response. Council is currently working through the first stages of the cleanup plan with consultants. This stage is further investigation and data validation and will inform any remedial options assessment, ROA, that may be required. The GST exclusive costs for the 2 consultants, including the independent auditor, to implement this stage of the cleanup plan is $12,560 for the assessor, $18,132.50 for the auditor, and a total of $30,692.50. It is expected that the current work to implement the first stages of the CUP will be finalised in March 2022. Once these work is completed, Council will be in a better position to comment on timing and if any remediation work is required. Question 3, Claude Forel. Council statement on the new planning scheme declares that it will protect the towns of Daylesford, Hepburn Springs, Creswick, Clunes and Trentham from inappropriate development. What, if anything, will it do to protect Glen Lyon from such development? When will Glen Lyon get its promised structure plan? My response: in addition to the strategic work identified as part of the planning scheme review, Council in 2021 resolved a strategic planning program, which includes a structure plan for Glen Lyon funded in the current 2021-22 budget. Community consultation is proposed to commence in the 2022-23 financial year for stage 1 of the Glen Lyon structure plan. Move on to question 4, and this is again from Claude Forel. How can Council reconcile planning approvals for new subdivisions of less than 4,000 square metres, about 1 acre, with the statements in its domestic wastewater management plan that such housing lots are categorised as high risk to groundwater waste quality and appropriate wastewater management? My response: As part of the planning assessment process, planning officers refer all land capability assessments to the environmental health team for advice and to the applicable water authorities as the determining authority. As per the Code of Practice, on-site wastewater management, small lots under 4,000 square metres, must be able to demonstrate how they can minimise the amount of wastewater generated and may require specialised irrigation systems such as wick trenches or mound systems to protect against any off-site discharge. Land capability assessments are used to determine if and how this can be achieved on individual lots, considering soil quality and any other constraints, such as proximity to waterways, bores, shallow groundwater, etc. Question 5, and this is from Marion Clare. When is the public consultation for the management of Glen Lyon Dam proposed? My response is, engagement has not yet commenced. A project and engagement plan is being developed with a view to commencing engagement in coming months. This is question 6 from Marion Clare as well. Why has a group had a meeting with Hepburn Shire manager occurred before this public consultation at Glen Lyon Dam? And my response is, council is unsure what meeting is referred to by the questioner. No consultation regarding the management of Glen Lyon Dam has been undertaken at this stage. Question 7, from Gina Lyons and Julian McDonald. Please note that this question was submitted by both Gina Lyons and Julian McDonald, so a single response has been provided. The question is, given that council officers were confident that the loan for the REX project could be serviced and the final cost projected was sound, what were the financial concerns for not proceeding? My response is, on the 15th of June 21, council endorsed a project budget of $8,755,000 based on several forecasts, including the construction costs if the project was retendered. It was proposed that the funding shortfall of $1.625 million was to be funded as a loan facility and repaid with the proceeds of property asset sales after the completion of the project. At the 23rd of November 21 council meeting, following the retendering process, council considered a report to award a contract for the Hepburn Hub at the REX building and associated works. The value of the contract was $6.3 million, $6,327,415 to be exact, which required a further additional investment of $649,415 above the budget allocation to complete the project. The financial concerns were taking account of the required funds in excess of the project budget. Question 8. This is from Gina Lyons as well. Why did council not consider any alternatives to selling, such as partnering arrangement, sale and lease back, etc.? My response is, council had previously workshopped a range of scenarios, including renting and lease back options, as part of considering cancelling the previous contract and to proceed with retendering the project. Part 6 of council's determination at the 23rd November 21 meeting does include a requirement for officers to prepare a project scope for a new planning project to review possible solutions for the community facilities and staff accommodation. It is envisaged that this project will consider alternative project options apart from the REX site. It should be noted that the resolution of council requires a sale process to be undertaken in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, which will include community engagement. Question 9, Joy Durston. Her question is, recently there has been a massive increase in the number of housing lots sold in Glen Lyon. Glen Lyon has no water or wastewater infrastructure. An increase of approximately 25% on the current population and housing will impose a heavy toll on the land capability and already stretched water resources. Given the Planning Minister's recent approval of planning scheme amendments C80 HEB-P, and that there is no mention of a structure plan for Glen Lyon in the document, that the recent communication from CEO Bradley Thomas says Glen Lyon will be after Creswick and Trentham in late 22. Will council place a moratorium on planning applications and not approve any further development in Glenlyon until the review and implementation of the Glenlyon structure plan is in place? My response is, unfortunately, there is no ability to place moratoriums on development proposals in the Victorian planning scheme. Therefore, decisions regarding development in Glenlyon will continue to be made under the new planning scheme now and into the future when the structure plans are formalised. The strategic planning program currently underway includes a structure plan for Glenlyon, which is funded in the current 21-22 budget. Community consultation is proposed to commence in the 22-23 financial year for stage 1 of the Glenlyon structure plan. Just take a moment. Moving on to question 10. Given the public mood with 1,092 citizens calling upon the local government minister to replace councillors with an administrator and countless formal and informal complaints about the REX decision to not proceed, why is it that the REX does not appear as an agenda item at every council meeting to enable an update to both councillors and the community on the status of the issue? And I should say this question is from Stan Capp. My response is, Council has previously determined to not proceed with the Hepburn Hub at the REX project, and this project has now been cancelled, so there is no report to be considered. Following a community engagement process about the sale of the building, in accordance with our community engagement policy, a report will be presented to Council that details the community feedback for consideration by Council in determining the next steps. Question 11 is also from Stan Capp. When will Council establish a process under its own community engagement policy to inform itself about the community views on the future of the REX with all the options on the table, including the acceptance of a tender to proceed as recommended by Council officers? My response is, as part of the sale process and in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, Council is required to undertake a community engagement process in accordance with our community engagement policy. Officers are currently planning for this process, and a further report will be presented to Council for consideration and determining any next steps. Part 6 of Council's determination at the 23rd of November 21 meeting does include a requirement for officers to prepare a project scope for a new planning project to review possible solutions for community facilities and staff accommodation. It is envisaged that this project will consider alternative project options apart from the REX site, as per Council resolution. Question 12, Julian McDonald. What was the amount and terms of the loan negotiated by Council officers for the completing the REX building project as presented for the November 21 Council meeting? My response is, a loan from the Commonwealth Bank for $3,012,000 was drawn down on the 28th of June 21. This loan is a principal and interest facility with a 10-year term and a fixed interest rate of 2.3%. The first payment was made at the end of December 21. Move on to question 13, and that's Stefan Sozzoni. In light of the community concern regarding the abandonment of the REX project, is Council prepared to reconsider its decision and attempt to find ways of completing this project so that at the end of the day, the community has a tangible asset rather than just a debt which it has to service? And my response is, Council has determined not to proceed with the Hepburn Hub at the REX project, and this project has now been cancelled. Council has to commence the planning for the sale of the building, and in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, a further report will be presented to Council following a local community engagement process to determine to proceed with the sale or not. Question 14 comes from Edwin Beecham. In view of the fact that many local residents donated money and volunteer time to making the Daylesford Cinema successful, in the expectation that this was to be a continuing facility for the district, what commitment does the Hepburn Shire Council have to providing a cinema for the citizens and ratepayers of Daylesford, Hepburn and surrounding areas? The full scope of services provided with, this is my response, provided with any Hepburn Hub project may not yet be determined. The full scope and services to be provided in a new facility will be considered by council at a later date. Question 15. This is from Jenny Beecham. Where can residents access a list of council-owned sites and properties in the Shire? My response is, council is responsible for managing council-owned properties and properties that council is designated Committee of Management on behalf of DELP. Our Manager Waste Facilities and Community Safety will make contact with yourself to provide the requested details. Question 16 comes from Jenny Beecham again. What is the timeline for the steps necessary to sell the RECs? My response is, prior to formally listing the RECs for sale, council is required to meet the requirements in section 114 of the Local Government Act 2020. This includes completing a community engagement process, which council officers are currently preparing, so expect to undertake in March, April. We anticipate providing a further report to council on the community feedback for a decision to proceed or not with the sale in May or June 22. Question 17 comes from David Moore. David provided a detailed preamble and the question has been summarised. The sale proposal of the RECs throws up many of the same conundrums as the last unsuccessful building contract. This is because Section 189 of the Local Government Act requires council to do certain things before selling the land. Is the council capable of doing this? What is the timeline to perform all these tasks? My response is, the steps outlined in the question related to the Local Government Act 1989, which has been superseded by the Local Government Act 2020. Council is fully aware of the requirements under the Local Government Act 2020 with the sale of the property and is capable of complying with these requirements. In this case, section 114 is relevant and lists the requirements of council prior to selling land. We anticipate providing a further report to council on the community engagement process required by section 114 in May or June 2022. Question 18. This is from David Moore as well. In the October meeting, council moved a motion for a health and safety work cover audit of existing accommodation and the need to properly house the staff, especially disabled access. The second part of this question inquired after a particular councillor's rationale in relation to this matter. Council will refer the questioner to the councillor for this response. So my response is, at the 20th of July 21 meeting, council resolved in part that in response to an investigative report that broadly describes council's current office accommodation as non-compliant with relevant state or federal legislation and presenting a substantial health and safety risk, and mindful of our obligations and responsibilities under the Occupational Health and Safety Act 2014, council requests officers to obtain expert advice as a matter of urgency so as to identify the remedies that are required to undertake in order to address specific deficiencies. This was moved by Councillor Brian Hood and seconded by Councillor Don Henderson, and it was carried. This independent expert assessment has been completed and officers are scheduling works to prioritise the resulting recommendations. Council remains committed to ensuring safe and appropriate accommodation is provided for staff. Question 19, and this is from Bill Guest. To establish a true financial position in determining the future of the RECs and alternative solutions, will council, 1, obtain the advice, the community, the market valuations for all council assets in Daylesford. These include Duke Street offices, Duke Street House and land next to the RECs, information centre and offices, the building between the information centre and the post office, the library and vacant land. Item 2, obtain and advise the community market rental income valuations for the commercial spaces in the RECs if the development is completed. These include 3 shops in Vincent Street, the public theatre and the area behind the theatre along Vincent Street frontage. My response is, it is not cost effective to engage an independent qualified valuer to undertake an asset valuation for all council-owned assets in Daylesford. However, it is a requirement to undertake a property valuation for an asset that is proposed to be sold. An updated asset valuation will be attained for the Rex building. However, this may be deemed commercial in confidence as its public release may compromise the sale value. In terms of commercial rental, will only be an estimate, and for the above reasons, this may not be made public until after the sale process. Moving to question 20, Kathleen McRae. The Rex is a lovely old building that contributes to Daylesford being an attractive tourist destination. It should be kept for community use and not sold for private ownership. Why is it being sold? My response is, the Rex building is proposed to be sold because the council provided a direction to the Chief Executive Officer to commence the sale process at the 23rd November 21 council meeting. However, a community engagement process will be undertaken and your views on the sale process can be shared as part of the engagement. Question 21 is from Kathleen McRae. I think the cinema should remain at the Rex, which is its natural home. The historic cinema building is a huge attraction to tourists who are looking to visit the true places of history, especially those that are Art Deco. How can the council retain the important community facility? My response is, council have directed officers to commence the sale process for the building. This process requires a community engagement process to hear the community feedback on the proposed sale. Following this community engagement process, a further report will be provided to council to consider the feedback and to consider next steps. And that comes to the end of public questions. Moving on to item 10.3, requests to address council. 2 requests to address council have been received for tonight's meeting. I now invite Ms. Janine Granger to address council regarding the Hepburn-Shire aquatic strategy. Welcome, Ms. Granger.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm just letting Janine into the office,
Right.
into the meeting now. Are you there, Janine? You appear to be on mute.
Hello.
Hello, Janine. Welcome to our meeting. You've got 3 minutes to address us today, and just letting you know that if you go way over a bit, I may ask you to stop, and there may be a moment for councillors to respond, but if they don't respond, I'll just ask you to leave at that point.
Okay.
All right. If you'd like to go from now.
Beautiful. Hepburn-Shire Council Aquatic Strategy. My name's Janine Granger. I am a fitness professional, a lifeguard, and a member of Daylesford Indoor Aquatic Centre, also known as DIAC. Having read the report in the agenda papers, it's great to see that a successful aquatic facility should include recreation, fitness, education, learn to swim, and therapy. We know that people don't use the pools because of cold water temperatures, irregular opening hours, poor accessibility, compliance, and a lack of suitable activities and programs. The report shows that the current 3 outdoor pools in the Shire are in very poor condition and are at the end of their useful life and are not meeting community expectations in terms of facilities and water temperature. They also only operate for about 60 days out of 365 days a year, or a 92-day season outdoors. The operating deficit for the existing pools is currently at $400,000 to $500,000 range, with the effective subsidy of about $20 per pool visit. So something needs to be done here. The draft report has a number of recommendations, including expenditure of up to $8 million, with the hope of extending the life of these old and tired pools for up to 10 to 20 years. I don't think that even with this amount of money spent, that this will address the community's need for an all-round facility for recreation, fitness, education, and therapy. And it certainly won't address the fundamental needs of people with disabilities. The pools will still be too cold and only used for a maximum of 92 days per year. The report doesn't address the issues of operating costs if these improvements are made. The report clearly supports the principle of an indoor facility. I'm disappointed that a decision relating 2 have not have been deferred for yet another consulting feasibility exercise, but nothing has been budgeted for. I believe an indoor aquatic facility is essential for the community, well-being, tourism, operation viability with good design, environmentally sustainable. Therefore, I plead with the councillors and council, don't just decide to release the draft report for public exhibition, but prioritise funding in the next budget to assess the viability of an indoor aquatic facility. Councillors must ensure that a funding allocation of the indoor planning is scheduled for 22-23 budget. Lastly, there needs to be a commitment for the planning feasibility study task to be completed by the end of this year, 2022. We've been waiting 30 years to get to this point. My family came out here in 1856. I swam in that pool when I was a youngster, and we also have an outdoor pool here, which is heated. We get the privilege of swimming in it every morning at 6:30 and every night at 5:30. It's fabulous. Thank you for the opportunity to address you.
Thank you, Ms. Granger.
Thank you.
Thank you. You'll be removed from the meeting now, I think. Thanks for the contribution.
Thank you very much.
I now invite Ms. Margaret McDonald to address council regarding the Hepburn Shire Aquatic Strategy.
Thank you, Mayor Riley. I was just speaking to Margaret on the phone, so hopefully she'll join successfully.
Fine. Thanks, Chris.
You there, Margaret? You're on mute at the moment. I've just asked you to unmute, so you should see a little thing on the screen.
Can you unmute, Margaret?
I'll just give her a call, Major. I'll be back in a second.
Okay.
Hello, Margaret.
Oh.
Are you there?
I'm here, yes, and I've got the host has got to admit me, apparently.
That's
Yeah.
all right. You should be on the call. Can you, all the councillors hear Margaret at the moment?
We can indeed.
I can see them all up the top there.
Okay, Margaret, go ahead and talk. You're right. You don't need your video on. So
Thanks,
So
Mark.
if I just talk now,
Yeah, well,
can
you've
everyone
got
hear me?
Yes, we can. Just letting you know you've got 3 minutes, and I might stop you if you go much over, but go ahead.
Okay, I'll take.
Are you still there?
are you still there, Margaret?
Doesn't sound like it.
Hello, Margaret.
Might need to let Margaret go, perhaps.
Yeah, I was going to suggest, Mayor, maybe if you were of the mind to, you could go and complete item 11.1. And then hopefully we can get the technical issues sorted and we can return to public participation time and hear Margaret prior to consideration of 11.2, which is the aquatic strategy. I'd suggest we go to 11.1 if that was suitable to councillors.
They all seem to be nodding, so let's assume that we'll move on to 11.1, which is the awarding of the contract of the Hammond Park Trailhead construction. I'm going to deliver this report, and look, Hammond Park is a recreation reserve located on Water Street, Creswick. It's the sole trailhead for Creswick Trails Network, which includes a proposed 60 kilometres of mountain bike and shared trails located in the adjacent Creswick Regional Park, state forests and plantation lands. In September 2020, Council adopted a master plan for Hammond Park Trailhead, and in March 21, Hammond Park received $2.1 million in state government funding from the Regional Tourism Infrastructure Fund for construction. And the purpose of this report tonight is to award the contract of Hammond Park Trailhead implementation. And officers undertook a request for tender RFT process in accordance with the procurement policy to seek submissions to construct the Hammond Park Trailhead, also known as Hammond Park Community and Youth Hub, an interconnected cycling and recreation space, which also will serve as the trailhead, as I've just mentioned, for the Creswick Trails Network. Look, this has been a project a long time coming for some of the community members, and I know how much it means to them. But there has been a lot of process in the background and a tremendous amount of work put into this to get it this far by both the community and our officers. And it's going to provide an incredible facility for Creswick and for local tourism potentially and local business. It crosses across a few different stakeholder areas. So it's not just about bikes, it's also about youth. There's community space. There's a new upgraded toilet facility, which will have some fantastic disabled access. There will be an existing facility there for a licensed facility that council owns as well. And to get this underway is a momentous time in the project. And I'd just like to read out the recommendation. And that is that council awards the contract HEPBU RFT 2021.26261 Hammond Park Trailhead implementation to Nature Form for the sum of $1,931,709, excluding GST, subject to the satisfactory outcome of a financial assessment of the company. Delegates authority for the Chief Executive Officer to sign and seal the contract documents on behalf of council. Delegates' approval of contract variations to the project manager up to their financial delegation for variation within the project budget. And 4, resolves that the attached tender evaluation report remains confidential and that the minutes record the successful tenderer and the accepted tender price. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
Point of order.
Yes.
Point of order, Mayor. I believe we have an opportunity to ask questions.
Good point, Councillor Bray. Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Mayor Drylee. I have a question for Bruce Lucas in relation to the funding for the Hammond Park Trailhead development. Could you let us know if this is the funding for this project is separate and distinct from the Creswick Trails bike path project? It is obviously related to, but is it a separately funded project?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bray. It certainly is a separate and distinct grant funded project. So just in terms of background, the master plan for Hammond Park Trailhead was adopted by Council back in September of 2020, which enabled Council then to pursue some grant funding for the implementation of that master plan. And we were successful in gaining $2.1 million of state government funding through the Regional Tourism and Infrastructure Fund. So it is a specific dedicated funding stream for the trailhead as opposed to the Trails project.
Thanks, Mr. Lucas.
Councillor Henderson, you've got a question?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. In my time on council, it seems to me that this seems an unprecedented amount of money to be given by the state government to a project without so much matching funding. Would I be correct in saying that it shows a big commitment on behalf of the government to give that amount of funding? And is that a bit unusual?
Through Mr. Mayor, thanks, Councillor Henderson. It certainly does show a commitment by state government to the project. The Trailhead project and gaining $2.1 million of grant funding is significant, and it's not that common to get such a percentage of the total project cost through grant funding. And I might add, there is a similar arrangement for the Creswick Trails project where state government also contributed substantially to that project, probably an abnormally high proportion of the overall project funding. So the short answer is yes, it does show great commitment in Hepburn Shire by state government.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Are there any other questions? On that basis, I will move, and I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Henderson, seconded by Councillor Halliday. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
The motion you're moving?
Yes, I'm wishing to move the officer's recommendation, and as printed in the papers. Mr. Mayor, as Mr. Lucas says, this is an unprecedented. I probably knew the answer, but I didn't want to be giving Dorothy Dix, but the amount of commitment shown to this particular project, and in recognition of what Creswick has been through, this project did not start yesterday. The bike trails was a project that really arose out of doing something for Creswick after the 2011 floods. And what could we do for Creswick? We didn't have Booktown, we don't have Spa and Indulgence. So what does Creswick have? And Creswick has the environment, but it also has an old unused sports ground that sits right in the middle of town. And what a good use it is for that. I must say at the outset, Mr. Mayor, that the idea of the pump track had very little to do with the bike trails. It had to do with the fact that it was felt that the young people, more the older youth had outgrown the skate park and that they needed something more extreme. That was then used to leverage the funds for the Creswick Trails, and the government showed commitment in giving that further $2.1 million at a time when the town was losing patience with the fact that we'd ever see some progress on this project. So there's been a lot of work by the local cycle clubs, a lot of work by our local community groups, and I know there are some announcements to be made, and I think it is in the papers. There are a great deal of community input into this project and belief. So I commend this to my colleagues. It is a long time coming, and people in Creswick are patient. And once again, it's an ideal thing. I know that the Hammond Park's been flooded again, but what better place to build a facility like this where it doesn't matter if it gets some water on it. In fact, I suspect from watching some of the cyclocross events that they rather like a bit of mud. So I think it'll be a really great thing for not only for Creswick, but for the Shire and also for the region to have a facility like this. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Halliday, would you like to support the motion?
I definitely support the motion, but I think Don said it all. I don't need to add anything further. Thank you.
Okie dokie. Anyone else would like to speak for or against the motion? On that basis, councillors, I put this motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is carried unanimously. Mr. Thomas, do we have a question?
I think we can now go back to public participation time, Mayor, and I think Mr. White's sorted out the IT difficulties there. Is that correct, Mr. White?
That is correct. I've got Margaret on the phone, so I'll just admit her into the room. So.
Hello again, Margaret.
Right. Oh, hi. I'm sorry, we seem to be having issues here, so I'll try to be quick.
That's all right. You've got 3 minutes, and I might cut you off if you go much over.
Yeah, okay. My name's Margaret McDonald, and I represent the DIAC committee. I also happen to be a successful businesswoman, community volunteer, and come from a family with multi-generational connections to the Hepburn Shire. DIAC is an advocacy group for an indoor aquatic centre in Daylesford, Hepburn. Formed in 2016, DIAC has provided council with copies of its 2018 scoping study and an update via its preliminary business plan in 2021. DIAC thanks both council officers and Optium Planning for the courtesy of a briefing last Thursday to review the findings of the draft report. Clearly, a significant amount of data has been distilled and provides a useful platform for council and councillors to develop and implement an effective aquatic strategy. It's important to highlight the report stresses a successful aquatic facility should cater for recreation, fitness, education, learning to swim, particularly in a country area, and therapy. Barriers include cold water temperatures, irregular opening hours, poor accessibility, compliance, and the lack of suitable activities and programs. The report goes on to highlight that the current 3 outdoor pools in the Shire are very near the end of their useful life and are not meeting community expectations in terms of facilities and water temperature. Also, there is currently community expectation in terms of facilities, and also there is a currently only 92-day season each year, which reduces to approximately 60 days each year due to the temperature restrictions. The operating deficit for the existing pools is currently in the 400,000 to 500,000 range, with an effective subsidy of $19.84, and this is the 2021 figure, of every pool visit. Visits to these pools have increased to only 20,000 from 20,000 to 25 visits since free entry applied in 2019, reinforcing the problems of temperature in facilities. The draft report has a number of recommendations, including expenditure of up to $8 million, with the hope of extending the life of those bills for up to 10 to 20 years. DIAC strongly believes that if spent, this will not address the community's need for an all-year facility for recreation, fitness, education and therapy, nor does it address the fundamental issue of disability access. Although the report clearly supports the principle of an indoor facility, there is disappointment that I'd like to emphasise that a decision relating to it has been deferred to yet another consulting feasibility exercise. DIAC believes that the finalisation of the indoor aquatic facility feasibility study will confirm DIAC's conclusions that an indoor aquatic facility is essential for the community well-being, operationally viable and, with good design, environmentally sustainable. Therefore, DIAC asks councillors and council to...
Thank you.
Can I just finish? To ensure its priorities funding to access the viability of an indoor facility. Furthermore, ensure decisions are both timely and in the interest of the community. Councillors must ensure that a funding allocation for the indoor planning is included in the 2022 to 23 budget. Lastly, there needs to be a commitment for the planning feasibility task to be completed by the end of this year. Thank you, and sorry for the delay.
No worries. Thanks, Ms McDonald. Thanks for your contribution.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, we move on to item 11.2, which is the draft Hepburn Shire Aquatic Strategy for Public Exhibition. And I welcome Councillor Hewitt to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mayor. The development of the Hepburn Shire Aquatic Strategy aims to give us a 10-year priority plan to guide the future strategic direction, infrastructure development priorities, asset management, and to also maximise participation in programming. The aquatic strategy has the draft aquatic strategy that we have before us started in April 2021 and has had much planning and community and key stakeholder engagement undertaken to inform this draft. And I have to commend both staff and the OTM group who prepared this draft strategy for the extensive stakeholder engagement that they've undertaken. Several key stakeholders were involved in the development of the draft aquatic strategy. That included Sport and Recreation Victoria, the Daylesford Indoor Aquatic Centre, the Advocacy Group, Wesrickan District Aquatic Centres Advocacy Group, Central Highlands Rural Health, several of our local schools, and also 965 residents who completed 795 responses through the community engagement process. That is a high level of community interest shown in the response to these consultation opportunities that were offered to them. What the development of the draft aquatic strategy has done is indicated the need for access to an all year round indoor aquatic centre. That's been identified, and the draft aquatic strategy has addressed this need through a number of recommended strategic directions and actions. I must say here that the significant challenge for us councillors in determining a future indoor aquatics facility is the affordability to build and operate such a facility. And that includes, of course, the ability to attract sufficient capital funding for any new facility and the ability to sustain the ongoing operational costs. We've been addressed by two members of the public today who note that those operating costs and budgeting costs have not been included in the report. Hepburn's population demographics, the younger and older demographic profile of the Shire, does require access to indoor aquatic facilities to support the key areas of learn to swim programs, therapy, aquatics programs, recreational and fitness swimming. The travel and climate conditions make it difficult for some residents to access aquatic services in neighbouring municipalities. It's perhaps not too much of a dream to think that young Hepburnshire youth might be able to represent us at the Olympics in 2032 in Brisbane. There's an identified community need. There's been extensive feedback from community engagement processes that have identified a strong need and desire for access to an year-round aquatics facility for learn to swim, therapy, aquatics programs and recreational swimming. There's evidence with our current facilities, which include outdoor pools at Daylesford, Clunes and Trentham, the Creswick Splash Pool and Cullenbean Park, that they're underutilised due to ageing infrastructure, cold water temperature, poor accessibility and facilities that are not meeting identified community needs. The draft aquatic strategy identifies the need for access to an indoor all year round aquatics facility to support the needs of our residents, but indicates that further work is needed. The recommended strategic directions outlined in the draft aquatic strategy are estimated to be between 5.9 million and 7.98 million. This includes facility upgrades, compliance and OH&S works, management and operation, facility programming and activation, asset management plan, outdoor pool and water play upgrades, and further indoor aquatics facility planning. Funding the implementation of those proposed actions would be subject to achieving funding as a part of future council budgeting processes and seeking external partner funding opportunities where applicable. That estimate does not include work on an indoor aquatic centre. It's representing upgrading the current pools. Purpose of the report is to seek our endorsement of the draft Hepburnshire Aquatic Strategy for public exhibition. And following the endorsement of that draft strategy for public exhibition, the next phase of community and stakeholder engagement is proposed for February and March 2022. Following the second phase engagement, it's anticipated that the final draft of the Hepburnshire Aquatic Strategy will be presented for Council's further consideration and seeking of adoption in April 2022. Councillors, we've heard from some members of the community. We've had a look at the draft report. We know that, that the challenge for us is that the recommendations are not budgeted for, but I would recommend that we support the release of this report for public exhibition and further consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. Do we have any other any questions for officers? Councillor Bray.
Councillor Hewitt for that report. The council adopts this draft version for public exhibition and the community give feedback, and it goes to the council meeting in April and is endorsed. My question is, what happens next? Is there further deliberation that council need to do to decide course of action and to budget for that? And is there any further feasibility studies to undertake to move projects forward?
And we welcome Ms. Lee McCallum to the floor.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Councillor Bray, the draft strategy does set out a number of actions that will need to be undertaken as a result of the report coming back to Council in April. They include further feasibility studies and business case development, which would come back to Council once that is completed for Council's consideration. If those feasibility and business case have a financial implication, then that would make its way through to the budget process, which is again for Council consideration at that time.
Thank you. Councillor Hood.
Oh, sorry,
yeah. Is there a follow-up? No.
Yes, I was wishing to put a question to Ms. McCallum, if I can.
Sure.
And I'll preface my question by complimenting you, Lee, and the team on putting together such a comprehensive report for exhibition with the public, and I am inclined to be very supportive of the strategy's directions. My question in two parts is the $6 to $8 million contemplated to be spent on existing facilities budgeted? And is the considerable capital cost for construction and the operating costs for the running of an indoor facility included in Council's 10-year financial projections?
You, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hood. The estimated cost to undertake the strategic directions and actions noted in the aquatic strategy is not included in the current budget or the long-term financial plan. However, the costs associated with the compliance and the OHS works identified in the strategy will be considered during the mid-year budget review. Remaining items in the strategy will require further detailed planning work, as I've indicated, which will include feasibility, business case and funding strategy to understand the detailed costs associated with these actions. This information will be provided to Council for consideration in process and will be prioritised with other capital and operational projects as part of that process. In relation to the capital and operational costs associated with the indoor facility, the draft aquatic strategy identifies the need for to undertake a feasibility study. The feasibility study will assist in fully understanding the capital operational costs associated with the indoor aquatic facility, along with Council's ability to fund, develop and operate an indoor aquatics facility. Once the feasibility study is complete and the capital and operational costs are established in detail, that information will be presented to Council for consideration and inclusion in the future budget processes, should it be determined, which will include the long-term financial plan.
Thank you, Ms McCallum. Councillor Henderson?
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor, to Ms McCallum. Ms McCallum, I note the words throughout the thing, an aquatic centre, meaning singular. Does that mean or follow that if we build an aquatic centre anywhere in the Shire, I notice it's silent on where it could or should be built. Does that mean, for example, if we built it in Creswick, we would make Clunes, Trentham and Dalesford cold pools redundant and no longer use them? Or in fact, if it was in Dalesford, would we make the Trentham and Clunes pools redundant? Or would we still be looking to have funding for those people that can't travel as far as Clunes to Dalesford, or in fact, perhaps even from Creswick to Dalesford? And I know that we'll still be able to retain Callumbean Park and the dredge hole there. There'll be no chance of filling that in. We don't have enough soil. But aside from using our pools for the Winter Olympics, as I know Councillor Ewart suggested we could use it for Olympic training, there is always a Winter Olympics, which we'd probably excel at, Councillor Ewart. But so that's just a question. Are we going to, would it mean that we would no longer, if we had, and let's just say we had it in Dalesford, we would no longer have pools in Trentham and Clunes?
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Peterson. Whilst that's yet to be determined, and of course we will bring that back to Council for consideration, there will be a financial consideration that will be form part of it. But there is no intention at this stage, and the strategy does not recommend the closure of outdoor pools as part of the strategy. It would give consideration, however, if an indoor aquatic facility was to be built in Creswick or Dalesford, for example, that an option or consideration would be to retire the outdoor pool in Dalesford. But as I've indicated, that would be a consideration for Council to make once the strategy is finalised and presented for in April.
Thank you, Ms McCallum. If there are no other questions, I will put read the recommendation which is before us, and that is that Council 1 endorses the draft Hepburn Shire Aquatic Strategy 2022-2032 for public exhibition from 16th of February 2022 to 18th of March 2022. And 2, notes that subject to changes after the consideration of the public exhibition feedback received, the Hepburnshire Aquatic Strategy 2022-2032 will be presented for adoption by Council at the ordinary meeting of Council in April 2022. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Hood and Councillor Hewitt. Councillor Hood, what's your recommendation?
My proposed motion is the officer's recommendation with the addition of the third point that we discussed and circulated earlier today, and I think that can be displayed on the screen, I believe.
All right. So I believe it's the same motion, except we've got item 2 has been slotted in.
That's correct, Mayor. It's the original officer's recommendation with the second point highlighted in yellow added in. Based on the response that Ms McCallum gave earlier, I think it would be prudent before we, or as we release the strategy document to the public, to be transparent and inform them that the directions coming out of the strategy document are not yet in our budgets or future financial projections. And it's important that at some point they will be, and that the reality is that significant external funding will be required.
Yes. Okay, sorry.
Apologies, Councillor Hood, to interrupt, but we still are halfway through getting a motion on the table.
The motion is on the screen. The motion is on the screen. It is the officer's recommendation with the addition of number 2, which is highlighted in yellow.
Okay, thank you.
Please read the motion.
Point of order is carried. Councillor Hood, we'll just read the motion first. So the motion as stands is 1, endorses the draft Hepburnshire Aquatic Strategy 2032 for public exhibition from 16th of February 22 to 18th of March 22, and 2, requests that prior to the commencement of the public exhibition, an amendment is made to the Aquatic Strategy draft report and the Aquatic Strategy summary report to state that the strategic direction, recommendations and actions arising from the draft aquatic strategy are not currently included in the long-term financial plan and would require significant external funding. And 3, notes that subject to changes after the consideration of the public exhibition feedback received, the Hepburnshire Aquatic Strategy will be presented for adoption by Council at the ordinary meeting of Council in April 22. So Councillor Hood, you're welcome to speak to that.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I was somewhat confused then as to who was actually chairing the meeting. But look, you've read out the addition to the officer's recommendation, and I think it's quite straightforward that we are properly informative to the public in making that comment as we release the strategy document. Thank you.
Councillor Hewitt, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I just would like to say that I support the motion and I support the addition that Councillor Hood has put in. It's a document of great community interest, has already been indicated and I've already explained, but it's also important to recognise that none of the recommendations are currently funded, and as our and the community needs to be aware of that. And it's adopting any of the recommendations, whatever that might be, is going to incur a substantial cost that's currently not budgeted. And so we need to be, we and the community need to be aware of that. So I support the motion as that I've seconded.
Councillor Halliday, would you like to speak for or against the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I fully support the motion. And I just wanted to reiterate what other councillors have said. I wanted to thank Janine Granger and Margaret McDonald for speaking tonight, but I also wanted to sort of, I guess, directly address what they've noted about us popping it in the budget. And the other councillors have mentioned this, but I think it's really important for everyone to understand that our funds are rate capped. We're currently at capacity with the services that we provide. We do not have any additional funds to just add this to the budget. It's not that simple. We will need significant state and federal budget funding in order to make this happen. Or there's other options such as, if everyone in the Shire agrees, we could increase rates in order to fund a project such as this. But it's really important that people understand that it's not just something that we can click our fingers and pop it into the budget. But we all definitely support, well, I can't say we all, the three of us so far support proceeding with this strategy, and hopefully, we will be able to find the funding and, hopefully get an aquatics facility down the track. But we just all need to be aware of the obstacles in our way. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Halliday. Councillor Henderson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would seek a slight amendment to the motion at point 2, where it said that requests. I believe that requests is just what it is. So I would be wanting to change that word to requires, that before it goes out for public exhibition. I know it's a moot point, but requesting something, someone might say no, but requiring something is a bit different. So I'd want to change the word from request to requires, that before it goes out. So I'd seek to amend that. Perhaps with the indulgence of Councillor Hood, might want to include that.
So Councillor Henderson's is saying we amend item 2 from request, the very first word requests, change that to requires, I believe.
That's correct.
Okay. And does anyone object to that amendment? No? Yeah.
My understanding is we have to ask Councillor Hood's permission and me as the seconder. I certainly don't object to it.
All right. And Councillor Hood?
I fully support that change. I see it as a mandatory requirement that that phrase be added before we release the document. So I have no problems at all with that proposed change.
Okay. There's no one else to speak for or against the motion. On that basis, we've added Councillor Henderson's amendment on top of Councillor Hood's amendment as has been read on and presented on the screen. Councillors, I put this amended motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And the motion is carried unanimously. All right, moving on to item number 12, and this comes from our community plan, Embracing Our Past and Planning for Our Future. And it's 12.1, awarding of a contract for curb and channel upgrade of Pearman Street, Creswick. And I invite Director of Infrastructure and Delivery, Mr. Bruce Lucas, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of the report is, as you say, to award or consider awarding of a contract to upgrade Pearman Street in Creswick. Councillors, we undertook a procurement process. We called for tenders in accordance with our procurement policy for a project that is already identified in our capital works program. Importantly, I just want to note that the upgrade does include designating this section of Pearman Street as a one-way travel path, and it is a travel path from Water Street to Victoria Street, so from south to north. with the provision, and importantly, with the provision of two-way traffic access to the CFA to the CFA station for responding volunteers to make access in their duties responding to CFA calls. The other point, just to highlight, that we have also engaged with business owners impacted by the proposed change, including the CFA, North Central Catchment Management Authority, and we also advertise those changes in the community through social media and signage on the site, and Council received no submissions on the proposed change. And accordingly, there is a recommendation, councillors, on page 180 of the papers, which is in 4 parts, to award the contract to Butler Excavations Proprietary Limited for a contract value of $287,015.54 exclusive of GST.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lucas. Councillor Henderson, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Lucas. Mr. Lucas, given that in the recent storm event, we had water coming down Pearman Street at a great rate. There is a drain that runs through at the back of the shops right down through to the Dalesford Road, to the Midland Highway. Have we taken that into account of what we need to do as far as making sure that that drainage behind the supermarket and behind the old Pasco shop right through there to that big drain at the back is not compromised and in fact enhanced if possible?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Henderson. And the short answer is yes, we have. And I have walked that section with a local businessman following the storm events in January to look at some of those concerns that were raised. Whilst I will say that that extraordinary event, probably no drainage system would have coped with that, or no reasonable drainage system would have coped with that, we have factored into this project an upgrade of that drainage system and an additional outlet from the gross pollutant trap at the intersection of Victoria Street and Pearman Street into the waterway or into the designated creek to help with water discharging from that point.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Would anyone else have any other questions? No, then we move to the officer's recommendation. I'll read it out. That Council 1 awards contract HEPU RFT 2021.06 for the fixed lump sum of $287,000 $15.54 exclusive GST for the contract to Butler Excavations Pty Ltd. That 2 approves council officers to make variations and additions to the contract in excess of the awarded lump sum contract value within approved officer delegations and approved budgets and contingencies. 3, delegates the Chief Executive Officer to sign and seal the contract documents on behalf of council. And 4, resolves that the attached tender evaluation report remains confidential and that the minutes record the successful tenderer and the accepted tender price. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Henderson, Councillor Halliday. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, this is an area down at the bottom end of Creswick that has been problematic as far as drainage and road surface is concerned. We have a major development being the supermarket, which is very well patronised, not only by Creswick people, but people from Ballarat, Dalesford, Clunes, and far beyond. So it has become a busy area. It does need some real attention, and it's good that we've been able to consult the community and come to an acceptable outcome as far as traffic movement. So I commend it to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Halliday, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just say that I support this much needed road upgrade, and it is great to see that council officers are pivoting and making changes to improve the infrastructure after the flood event. So that's really great to see. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Halliday. I open the floor to debate. Would anyone else like to speak for or against the motion? On that basis, I Well, I'm in search of a motion. No, I'm not. Councillors, I put this motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thanks, everyone. Moving on to item 13, and that is part of our dynamic and responsive council, a section of our council plan, and it's 13.1, Hepburn Shire Advocacy Statement. I'd like to introduce Councillor Bray to introduce this report.
Thank you, Mayor Riley. This is the Hepburn Shire Advocacy Statement, and this document is being drafted alongside our community vision and council plan, and it includes key advocacy projects as well as ready-to-go projects for capital works. And this is a very important document to support council's lobbying efforts as we enter into an election cycle for both state and federal governments within the next 12 months, and also in the lead up to the 2022 budget. We previously identified some key priority projects, and in addition to that, we've added a number of advocacy causes that we'd like to lobby our governments for. I'd just like to acknowledge that the draft community vision for 2021-2031 and the council plan, including the municipal public health and wellbeing plan, that these projects will further be identified for inclusion in future, such as the aquatic strategy, Hepburn settlement strategy, sustainable Hepburn, and Hepburn Shire master planning. I'd just like to highlight a few of the key priority projects in this document. One is our advocacy towards a rethink of the Western Victorian Transmission Lines project. Hepburn Shire is strongly opposed to the current proposal, and this will form part of our advocacy towards government. Also, to improve access to social and affordable housing, to follow up our climate emergency declaration with a goal towards net zero emissions. Also, to reinforce the Hepburn settlement strategy as part of our work to strengthen our planning scheme. To advocate for public transport and better access to transport to schools and work. There's also a number of capital works projects that we'd like to advocate for, and these include activating our walking and cycling trails, the Dalesford to Hanging Rock Rail Trail and extension to the Spa Country Railway line, restoring the Clunes Town Hall, as I mentioned, the aquatic facilities and the Hepburn Dalesford Hospital upgrade. So these are just some highlights in the document of projects that we have prioritised to approach government for support or for funding.
Thank you, Councillor Bray.
I can read the...
Yes, you can read the recommendation if you like.
I can read the recommendation. The officer's recommendation is that Council adopts the draft Hepburn Shire Council Advocacy Statement, number 1, and 2, acknowledges that to ensure a well-balanced portfolio of initiatives, that the advocacy statement will be reviewed annually to identify further projects from the council vision and council plan as current and future strategic work evolves.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Would anyone have any questions to officers on this report? No? Okay, then we have a recommendation. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Bray.
I would like to move that we adopt the officer's recommendation.
And someone second that? Councillor Henderson. Councillor Bray, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Councillor Riley. I support the advocacy statement and I support the motion to adopt the draft. This is a great opportunity for us in this election year to go and speak to our representatives in in state and federal government. And this is a really great opportunity for us. We've prioritised what's come out of the feedback we've heard from the community that's come out of our council plan. So this is a document that will hopefully spearhead a number of projects and also look at ways we can improve our services in the community. As we've said, this can change as opportunities arrive, and there is a chance for it to be reviewed annually.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, this is not just about what council does. I think this advocacy does open us up to advocate on behalf of our community on projects that don't actually involve necessarily council. It's taking the attitude of council community is us, and so projects like the Daylesford Hospital, whilst we don't get directly involved in those and schools and bus services and things like that, we could throw our hands up in the air and say, oh, well, look, it's nothing to do with council. You go and talk to the government. Well, that's fine. But I think it's expected by our community that we do have more access than some of those do to our ministers and to federal and state government people. So I think it's beholden upon us to use our good office, if you like, to advocate on behalf of our community for things that will be good for the community, not just the things that council do as council operations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Would anyone else like to speak for or against the motion? No. Okay, so I have a motion. Councillors, all those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Moving right along to 13.2, which is Facilities Maintenance Panel and the contracts for plumbing, electrical and painting. And welcome back, Mr. Bruce Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, each year we spend in the order of $700,000 on certain trades to assist us in the management, maintenance and repairs for our building and facilities assets. We currently have been doing that via individual procurement processes on a job-by-job basis. And in order to streamline that process, we have undertaken a tender process for securing a panel of certified providers endorsed by council under a formal contract with schedule of rates that enable us to perhaps be a little bit more reactive in terms of engaging contractors compliant with the Local Government Act, compliant with our procurement policy. So this panel of recommended contractors is for provision of a number of services, and we called for tenders in 5 categories of works, and they were for plumbing and gas fitting maintenance and repairs, for electrical maintenance and repairs, for electrical capital upgrades and new installations, and for painting services, and also for heating, ventilation and air conditioning. Councillors, we did receive a number of tenders for all but the heating and ventilation air conditioning component. They've been through a formal tender evaluation process, and all submitters that were received under the first 4 categories for works are recommended to council for appointing to a panel of providers for the coming 3 years.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Do we have any questions for Mr. Lucas? Mr. Councillor Henderson.
Mr. Lucas, can you assure me that all of those people that we're voting upon tonight have completed all of the necessary forms and all of the necessary things that were asked of them as part of this tender?
Through Mr. Mayor, thanks, Councillor Henderson. The short answer is yes. The tender evaluation panel have assessed all of the submissions received. Through the process, I can confirm that the tender evaluation panel did have a need to go back to 1 or more of the submitters, which is not uncommon, to clarify in some instances or seek further information from tenderers. We look to do that to try and support local providers that support us and support our local community. but we also are very mindful of not crossing a threshold in terms of favouring or guiding any of the prospective tenderers. So whilst we might seek further information and assist them with the process, we're certainly mindful of not crossing the line.
Thanks, Mr. Lucas. Any other questions? No. I'll read out the recommendation. That is that Council 1 accepts all tender submissions to form the contract panel, contract number HEPU 8 RFT 2021.212 in the categories of plumbing and gas fitting maintenance and repairs, electrical maintenance and repairs, electrical capital upgrades and new installs, painting services. 2, authorises council officers to provide a letter of acceptance to each tenderer confirming rates as supplied have been accepted. There is no guarantee a purchase order will be issued to each tenderer, and should council decide to engage services, a contract in the form of a purchase order will be issued. 3, authorises council officers to issue standing orders and purchase orders within officer delegation as required to the approved panel of suppliers. Resolves that the attached tender evaluation reports remain confidential and that the minutes record and the successful tenderer and the accepted tender price. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Henderson and Councillor Hood. Councillor Henderson, do you wish to speak to the motion? Are you on mute?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think enough said. We do rely upon these trades to be able to be called in at short notice, and over the years that I've been on council, they've done a very creditable job. It's not easy just to be able to pluck a plumber or an electrician or somebody like that out of the sky when you've got a burst pipe, and to give that priority. And I believe that we have had in the past very good service from those contractors. Some of them, or most of them, that are already on that list, and I've known that they've been doing work for many years for the council. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Hood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything further to add.
Okay. And anyone else for or against the motion? On that basis, I put the motion to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's carried unanimously. And we move on to item 13.3, which is the annual plan 21-22, Q2 update, October-December 21. And Councillor Hood, you're to introduce this report, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you say, this report is at the halfway mark of this financial year, and it lists progress against some 48 major projects. Councillors, I would draw your attention to the snapshot summary on page 234, which I think is noteworthy, in that at the halfway mark of the year, some 20% of the projects are already complete, and a further 53% are in progress and on track. And in the context of council's financial and human resources being substantially stretched because of the storm event last year, COVID itself, and now the Creswick floods early this calendar year, I would suggest that having 73% of projects complete or on track and in progress at the halfway mark is a commendable performance, and one that we should note management and the staff's efforts to do that, in addition to all of those unplanned eventualities that they're having to address. I won't go through the 48 projects, obviously. The report is very extensive, and we are being asked to note it, and also asked to note that it will be published on council's website so that the community can see how council is tracking on these major projects. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Hood. Would anyone have any questions for officers on this report? No? Okay. Well, I have a recommendation. Yes, sorry, Councillor Hood.
Sorry, Mayor. No, I would like to put a question to Mr. Burgess, if I may. And again, my question is prefaced in my earlier comments that council has been severely stretched by these storm events and by COVID. And we have quite a number of very large projects that on the books. Going forward, and in the context of all of that, what are the implications for council's budget going forward and our ability to take on further major projects on behalf of the community?
Through you, Mayor Dryley, and thank you, Councillor Hood, for your question. And there is no doubt that there has been an impact on both the human and financial resources of council as a result of both the Trentham storm event and the Creswick flood event, and of course the ongoing and evolving COVID pandemic. We do have staff that have been called out of their business as usual, if I can use that term, duties to actually support our community and provide services that we would not otherwise be providing at the moment. That does come at a cost to council, both the human and financial. Some of those costs can be offset by other grant funding, and we'll be obviously making every effort to recover as many of those costs as we can. But there is no doubt, or undeniably, there are other real costs to council which will have an impact on our budget. What I can tell councillors is that and assure you that the annual plan projects that Councillor Hood has referred to tonight in this report are all fully funded within our current budget. What we will be doing though, councillors, is, and we are finalising the December financials, and again through, I apologise to council that they aren't at this council meeting tonight. They will be brought forward to the March meeting. And we'll finalise those reports and make sure they are presented to council for March. We will also be conducting a number of briefings with councillors over the coming weeks in relation to the mid-year budget review, and a report will be coming to the March meeting for council to consider on what are the implications of these events and the potential ramifications of ongoing or funding of further projects into the future. Councillors, the executive team are very aware of the importance of delivering a fiscally responsible budget and ensuring that we are delivering on the services that our council and community require, but are also doing that in the within the financial constraints that we do have as an organisation.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Any other questions for Mr. Burgess? No. So the recommendation is that Council 1 notes the annual plan 21-22 Q2 updates, and 2 notes that this report will be published on the Council's website. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Hood, Councillor Hewitt. Councillor Hood, do you wish to say anything?
Only, Mr. Mayor, to say that my motion is as per the officer's recommendation in the report.
Councillor Hewitt, would you support the motion?
No, nothing to add except to support Councillor Hood's comments about the excellent efforts of the staff to do this to complete the percentage that they have and have those under track in the circumstances they've been operating under this year.
Thanks, Councillor Hewitt. Would any other councillor like to speak for or against the motion? Councillors, I put this motion to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's carried unanimously. Now moving on to item 13.4, and that's the recommendations for the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 13th of December 2021. Councillor Hood, you'll introduce this report for us.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, as you will be aware, the Audit and Risk Committee is an advisory committee to Council. It has 4 independent members as well as 2 councillors and it meets quarterly. The December meeting, as you can see from the report and the minutes of that meeting, was quite extensive, as their meetings tend to be, and it covered quite a wide range of functions throughout, right across council. The officer's recommendation in this report is to receive the draft minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee and to note the recommendations and resolutions that advisory committee moved at their 13 December meeting, and as detailed in the report. I should take the report as read. It's quite extensive, and I commend the report to councillors. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We have a recommendation that Councillor Hood has just read out. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? I did see your hand go up, Councillor Bray, first, and then it went down again. So,
yep.
Okay. Councillor Henderson, you're seconding?
I haven't put my motion.
Oh, sorry, your motion is?
Actually, I was asking a question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I have jumped the gun. What is your question, Councillor Henderson?
My question is, and I note in noting the recommendations of the Audit and Risk Committee, they actually ask for a report on how a decision of council came to be. And I'd just like to ask the question of our governance person, maybe Mr. Thomas, if that's within the scope of the role of the Audit Committee to ask such a question or ask for such a report.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Audit and Risk Advisory Committee, is that an advisory committee to council? It's not the Audit and Risk Committee's terms of reference or charter to ask questions of councillors' decision making. The role of the Audit and Risk Committee is to ensure there's the processes in place to get to the stage of putting a decision before council. So any requests from the Audit and Risk Committee for individual councillors' decisions wouldn't be appropriate for the Audit and Risk Committee. They need to ensure themselves of the processes leading up by officers in terms of the tender and the procurement and so on to put an officer's recommendation and report in front of councillors, and then councillors' decisions are that of councillors. And yeah, that's all I can add to that question.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Thomas. Any other questions for Mr. Thomas? Okay, well, we will actually go to the motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Bray, you're moving a motion and seconding. Councillor, what is your motion, Councillor Bray?
A motion, thank you, Mayor Driley. The councillor receives the draft minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting that was held on the 13th of December 2021.
So this is an amended motion?
No, it's the motion, sorry.
Okay.
And notes the recommendation and resolution of Audit and Risk Committee that were moved on the meeting of the 13th of December 2021 and that are detailed in the body of the council report. And 3, enacts the recommendation of the Audit and Risk Committee regarding Hepburn Hub at the Rex project update, point 14.2.4, that the considerations to date be well documented and show how decisions were made for the community, including lessons learnt and steps to improve future project processes.
Okay. Councillor Hood, do you accept that motion?
No, Mr. Mayor, I don't.
Do we have another seconder for that motion? Councillor Halliday? Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Bray?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I would like to speak to the motion. The Audit and Risk Committee are an advisory body to make recommendations to council, but they cannot make determinations. It is up to council to choose to enact these recommendations by the Audit and Risk Committee. The Audit and Risk Committee have a responsibility to protect council's reputational risk, health and safety risk, and its financial risk. The Audit and Risk Committee have called for a report on how council went about making a decision to sell the RECs. They're asking that the considerations that led to this decision be well documented and show how these decisions were made on the community's behalf. They want council to show what lessons have been learnt and to identify steps to improve future project processes. I respect the role of the Audit and Risk Committee in their oversight of council's activities and the fact that they would like that they would like to better understand what led to council making this important decision. I'm also aware that the community would like more clarity on what led to this decision. Without a council directive to produce this report, the CEO is under no obligation to fully document this decision-making process. So in my role as a councillor, in line with the direct request from the Audit and Risk Committee, I move this motion for council to undertake a report to document how this decision was made to sell the RECs and how we can learn from this and improve project processes in future.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Councillor Halliday, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I respect some of the views that this is not necessarily the Audit and Risk Committee's responsibility, but I do think that it is a good point. It's something that our community really wants, and it is also good process to, I guess, once we've got to the end of a project like this that has gone wrong in so many different ways, to sit down and look at what has gone wrong and what we can learn from it. I think it would be a good process for us to all go through. And I think it's, we're all meant to be representing our community. And I think it's only fair to be transparent and to provide that information to our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Halliday. Would anyone else like to speak for the motion? Would anyone else like to speak against the motion? Councillor Hood.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll speak against the motion on at least 3 grounds. One is that it's unnecessary. The officer's recommendation, as already tabled in the report, asks councillors to note the minutes and note the recommendations and resolutions of the Audit Committee. That's up to councillors to do that. Secondly, it was erroneously stated by Councillor Bray that the Chief Executive may or may not use his discretion to take on board the Audit and Risk Committee's recommendations. Well, that's completely wrong, because it's up to the councillors to accept and deal with the recommendations of the Audit Committee, not the Chief Executive. So the amendment is not necessary. It's also wrong. And thirdly, given the advice that we just heard a few minutes ago from the Chief Executive, that regarding the Audit and Risk Committee's scope and powers, it would be highly problematic to then turn around and do this when that question has already been answered by the Chief Executive. So I'm against that addition to the officer's recommendation on at least those 3 grounds.
Thanks, Councillor Hood. Councillor Hewitt, you'd like to speak against the motion?
Yeah, I am speaking against the motion on 2 grounds. One, we've had the advice from the Chief Executive Officer that this is not the role of the Audit and Risk Committee and that they've exceeded their grounds. And secondly, it's my view that until such time as the Victorian Local Government Inspectorate release their long-awaited report, that any learnings or any understanding of what's occurred with that particular building will necessarily be incomplete. Therefore, I think it's premature. I don't object to the idea of having that understanding and learning, but the timing is totally wrong because any such understanding will necessarily, until the inspectorate, which we've got no control over, release that report, will of necessity be incomplete.
Thanks, Councillor Hewitt. Is there anyone else like right of reply from Councillor Bray, as long as no one wanted to speak against? Councillor Henderson first to speak against.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a bit of reluctance here because I do like to be transparent, and I do believe that I always have my phone on, and if anyone wants to ask me what motivated me to make a decision, they're quite free to do so. But for an Audit and Risk Committee or a motion of council to compel me to do such a thing is another matter. And like Councillor Hewitt, there are a lot of things that have led up to this cancellation of the project. And they're not just to do with money, they're to do with other issues. And I do think it's premature to preempt what might happen with the inspectorate report. I think that the inspectorate really is dragging the chain and causing a whole lot of problems for our community. They should get on with it, in my belief, and release that report. However, as Councillor Hewitt says, that's not our role. We can't make them do anything. And once again, we can't exceed our powers. We don't have the power to make the inspectorate release their report. I think if they did, it would clarify a lot of the thinking, and it may be that we can let some of the learnings go from this community, from this project out to our community. But I do think that it is premature, and what I would like to do is, if this motion fails, I flag that I will move a different motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. I believe Councillor Bray, you wanted to write a reply?
Thanks, Mayor Riley. I would like to acknowledge that the Audit and Risk Committee have clearly requested this report. Obviously, they have some concerns about how the decision was made. They want us to go forward looking at ways we can do better next time. Also, I conclude that the community have also asked for clarity on this. In response to the questions about the scope of the Audit and Risk Committee, I have a note from the CEO that states that while this sort of request may be outside the scope of the Audit and Risk Committee, there is nothing legally to say that they cannot ask for such a report, but it would require a motion of council to agree to that request. So that is why tonight I have put this motion to formally request that this report be taken to be enacted. So thanks for that opportunity to reply.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bray. We do have a motion on the floor. I'd like to put it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryelly, Councillor Bray. All those against? Councillor Hewitt, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Henderson and Councillor Hood. I declare that the motion is lost. On that basis, do we have another motion that anyone would like to put?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move a motion if we could put up what the officer's recommendation, the original officer's recommendation is. I'd like to see that, please. Yes, well, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, and the motion is that we receive the draft minutes, the Audit and Risk Committee, the 13th of December 2021, and we note the recommendations and resolutions of the Audit and Risk Committee that were moved on the meeting of 13th of December 2021 and that are detailed in the body of the council report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Henderson. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hood, Councillor Henderson, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do. Mr. Mayor, there's one thing about being transparent and there's another thing about setting a precedent. And if we are to have the Audit and Risk Committee question every decision at every council, they could very well, any decision we make, be it on a planning matter, be on anything, there are naturally 7 elected councillors, and the idea of the local government is that we have a diversity of opinion. One of the things that's in common is that we should all be, to the best of our ability, making decisions that we believe, in our best and honest belief, reflect what our community as a whole want. Not just a few of the community, the whole of the community. And so I think it sets a dangerous precedent for an audit committee to be allowed, or a council to in fact move, that each councillor be required to give a detailed report of how they reached their decision. It's never been heard of in my lifetime, and I can stand to be corrected, but I just think it sets a very dangerous precedent. I think all of us ought to be able to justify why we made a decision, and I'm quite prepared to do that. And I'm sure any of my colleagues would be able to justify why they've made a decision, and how, if people take the time to request that they do so. So I commend this particular motion to my colleagues.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Hood, would you like to speak to the motion?
I need to add, Mr. Mayor, to the comments that I made earlier. I support the comments made by Councillor Hewitt in that this is largely a matter of timing, and that once other reports that are outside of our control hit the table and other steps are taken through this particular process, then there will be far more transparency and information will come out. So it is largely, amongst other things, a matter of timing. So I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Would anyone else like to speak for or against the motion? Okay, look, we've got a recommendation. I've got a motion on the floor. We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. It's Councillor Bryan, Councillor Hood, Councillor Dryley, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Hewitt. All those against? Councillor Bray, Councillor Halliday. The motion is carried. We move on to item 13.5, which is the appointment of members, Mineral Springs Reserve Advisory Committee. And I'd invite Councillor Halliday to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mayor. So this item is basically to run through the recommendations of the officers of who they think should be appointed to the committee. The committee can have 3 to 5 community members on it. And we did get 5 applications and 5 people have been recommended to be added to the committee. 3 are members that have reapplied and have previously sat on the panel, and 2 are new members. Don't think there's probably much else I need to sort of say on that point, but I will read out the officer's recommendation. That council appoints the following community representatives to the Mineral Springs Reserves Advisory Committee for a period of 3 years expiring on January 31st, 2025. And they are Lisa Rodier, Bill Guest, Nathan Lundmark, Brendan Lawton, and David Moore. And 2, acknowledges the involvement and input provided by community members during the previous term of the Mineral Springs Advisory Committee and formally notes its appreciation.
Thank you, Councillor Halliday. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? I think I saw Councillor Simpson's hand come up first. You're moving, Councillor Simpson?
I would like to move.
Is that an amendment?
No, it's a motion.
Motion, yep. What's your motion?
That council appoints the following community representatives to the Mineral Springs Reserve Advisory Committee for a period of 3 years expiring on January the 31st, 2025. Lisa Rodier, Bill Guest, Nathan Lundmark, Brendan Lowton. And number 2, acknowledges the involvement and input provided by community members during the previous term of the Mineral Springs Advisory Committee and formally notes its appreciation.
Okay, so to be clear, you're removing David Moore from the original motion?
That's great.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hood. Councillor Simpson, would you like to speak to your motion?
I would just like to say the Mineral Springs Advisory Committee meets 4 times a year, and 3 representatives from the previous committee are recommended to continue.
Okay, and Councillor Hood, do you have anything to say to support the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As Councillor Simpson chairs that committee and its important work, I'm happy to be guided by her recommendations, and I support the motion.
Would anyone else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to speak against the motion. All of the applicants have submitted their applications to be on this committee. They've provided background about their involvement in the community and their particular expertise in this subject. Council officers have assessed those applications and determined that all 5 applicants are suitable for this committee, and I think we should appoint all 5 applicants as there are 5 positions available on the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Councillor Halliday, you'd like to speak for or against the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to speak against the motion. I understand that there are some concerns, but I feel that there is no hard evidence to back up the concerns, and I think everyone should have the opportunity to serve on a advisory committee, and only if there is issues then they can be, asked to leave the committee. I think they should be given a chance to serve, and this particular applicant is very passionate, and I think he should be given a chance. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Halliday. Would anyone else like to speak for or against the motion? No. So we do have a motion on the floor. We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Simpson, Councillor Hood, Councillor Henderson. All those against? Councillor Bray, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Halliday, and I note Councillor Hewitt, you're abstaining. In that case, I believe I've got a casting vote. Is that correct? Just seek governance advice on that.
As the Mayor, you'll have the casting vote.
Well, I'm against the motion, so the motion is lost. Do we have a motion on the floor? Councillor Bray? Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move the officer's recommendation.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
That item on the agenda has already been dealt with.
Okay. So the item's lost and we're moving on to the next item. Just correct, Mr. Thomas, just checking the point of order there.
Might just be good if we could take a couple of minutes of standing orders, Councillor Dryly, while I have a review of the governance rules.
Okay, we'd just like to suspend standing orders.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Move that to seconder, please. Thanks, Councillor Bray. All those in favour? It's carried, and we'll suspend standing orders for the time being for 5 minutes.
So, Mr CEO,